Okay, everyone, we'll go ahead and start. Welcome to our next webinar. Obviously, this is about the H-2B cap, and we scheduled a little while ago. Anissa sent you all of the emails identifying what it was that we were going to talk about, but there's something else that we need to talk about for not only the purposes of clarifying what's going on, but also kind of hopefully to provide you a little bit of assurances. Late on Friday afternoon, President Trump signed a proclamation restricting H-1B workers. Okay, H-1s are what the Department of Labor refers to as high-skilled workers. So our practice, our little immigration group, probably does somewhere in the area of about 20 H-1Bs each cycle. It's something that's completely within our bailiwick, but it is not something that we rely on as a practice group. And most of that is because an H-1B visa itself is a relatively easy mechanism in order to recruit a high-skilled worker. The reason why it's relatively easy is because there's a Department of Labor process which provides for a certification, but does not compel an employer to recruit. Okay, so H-1Bs is limited to individuals with either American bachelor's degrees or the equivalent of that, which is generally 5 years of experience in that area. Okay, so these are, for the most part, foreign nationals who have matriculated at American universities and colleges who, after 4 years, have received their degree, go out into the public, and then employers petition to allow them to basically work for them in a specialized category. For the most part, most H-1Bs are either computer science engineers or are software designers. The vast majority of the H-1Bs are used for those individuals. So what the Trump administration has now done is, for any H-1B application that's filed after September 21st of 2025, so any application that was filed after midnight on Sunday, the fee associated with that process increased from $2,800 to $100,000. Okay, so I want to say that again. If you are applying for an initial H-1B, the filing fee associated with the filing of that single form, the I-129, has gone from $2,800 to $100,000. And so essentially what this administration has done is they've put enough monetary pressure on employers not to use the H-1B visa category. Now, a lot of litigators out there have suggested that there's going to be litigation associated with this fee increase. But I will tell you, having litigated cases for the last 30 years, the president is completely within his authority to do this. He is absolutely within his authority. Now, the timing is kind of interesting, and that's because H-1B applications are generally not available until October 1st of the fiscal year, and all of the H-1Bs for federal fiscal year 2026 have already been exhausted. And so this is really not going to impact anybody filing until next April 2026, for available October 1 visas. I would propose, or I would project, or I would kind of anticipate that I don't see any employer filing an H-1B application next year. And obviously, this is the first year of 4 years of the second administration of the Trump administration. I don't see this policy changing. When discussing this in San Diego with my wife over the weekend, we were kind of going back and forth as to why it is that President Trump has done this. And basically, what I think it is it's high-skilled worker protection. So what he wants to do is compel high-tech employers like Oracle, Microsoft, Apple, a lot of the financial services industries, Goldman, Schwab, a lot of the big kind of white-collar industries, to really kind of focus on recruiting and retaining American talent. What I'll tell you just from a pessimistic perspective is the vast majority of users in the H-1B marketplace are essentially outsourced computer technicians. So if you're a large corporation and you've got a pretty robust internal software system, you generally outsource your tech support to a company that for the most part is maintained or manned by H-1B visas. And so I think the administration wants to get this out of the way and not allow it to happen. For those of you who do engage us to support you from an H-1B perspective, recognize that this doesn't apply to any petitions that were submitted before September 21st. So if we've got either a transfer or an extension, that B is not going to be associated with that process. And it also doesn't prevent the current H-1B holder from ingressing and egressing from the United States. Now, what does this mean in the H-2B context? If he wanted to increase filing fees in general for non-immigrants, he could have associated this fee with the form itself, the I-129, which I filed for all of you in the H-2B context. But he didn't do that. He limited it to H-1Bs. I will also tell you, as I've told most of you in personal conversations, that the Trump family uses H-2B workers for the most part to maintain the golf courses that is owned in President Trump's portfolio. So Mar-a-Lago, the golf courses outside of DC, all of those are maintained for the most part by H-2B workers. So the Trump family actually uses H-2B workers. The last thing that I'll tell you is because there is such a concern about worksite enforcement at commercial farms, I don't see this impacting H-2A adjudication at all. If he wanted to do that, he could have effectively increased the fee associated with the H-2 process to, I guess, halt employers from considering utilizing foreign labor for their needs. But the big difference is one that I want to go back to from the beginning of this webinar, which is the H-1B process does not require recruitment. It doesn't. You don't need to offer it to able and willing United States citizens. You do need to do that in both the H-2B and H-2A context. So I think that's the demarcation line. I think it is the Trump administration concerned that H-1Bs were abusing the opportunity to recruit United States citizens, which may or may not be resulting in increases in the unemployment rate. We've seen quarterly increases during the first year of the Trump administration. I think he's very concerned about that and what kind of impact that's going to have on the economy. And so I don't think it's going to happen to you. So for those of you who we do petition for H-1Bs, we're going to have to probably schedule just a follow-up to discuss what this kind of impact has on our recruitment next year. It's not going to have any sort of short-term impacts. We probably won't have this discussion until February or March. For those of you who utilize us in the E3 category or the H-1B1 category, this does not impact you either. So for those of you who are actively recruiting in Australia, New Zealand, Chile, Singapore, you guys are still fine. And for those of you who do H-2Bs, it's not going to impact us. So let's go ahead and jump into the webinar that we've got going on, the real focus of this webinar. USCIS announced on September 16th that the first half of the federal fiscal year 2026 H-2B visa cap was hit on September 12th. And so we already have applications that are being returned. For the most part, and I'm excited about this, those applications that hit the cap already have a spring allotment of H-2B workers that are here. So as of today, none of my clients have been adversely impacted by the visa cap, We're just going to be able to transfer the workers to that existing labor cert and then utilize unused winter visas that our clients have for those of you who want to backfill a couple of positions. We do have extra visas, which is one of the differentiators in coming with KJ Partners, and I'll address that later. But for the most part, you just need to know that the cap got hit on the 12th. Now, comparing this to last year, the cap got hit 6 days earlier this year than it did last year. And that is continuing a trend that we saw even the year before. Whereas during 2023, the cap actually got hit a little later than the year before, but that was an outlier. And the reason why I think that was an outlier is because it was an election cycle, and a lot of employers were concerned about the change in the administration. At least that's what I'm putting it up to. Obviously, we'll never know. But what you guys need to know is the utilization of the H-2B visa category, particularly for those of you who have a winter need, is regressing. So we're going to hit the cap early and earlier each year, which is why, I'm going to continue to harp on implementing multiple strategies to ensure that you get your H-2B visa workers year over year. Requests for winter visas is much higher this year over year, over the last couple of years. And I think that's attributable to a couple of things. I'd like to say that we were the genius law firm in the country that was able to identify this 2-season strategy. But I think because all of these applications are subject to public record, people are kind of mimicking our activity, which is compelling employers to petition earlier and earlier during the winter season. So I think we're seeing a lot more winter companies who are actively involved in either snow resort support or snow removal or holiday light illumination, moving from a December 1st start date or November 15th start date all the way back into an October 1st start date. If you did not have an October 1st start date this year, you did not get your visas. So it's critical for us to continue to move our applications as close as possible to October 1st to make sure that you guys are going to get your visas. And although we have been engaged by most of you to utilize this October opportunity to ensure that you're going to get your workers in the spring, there are some of you that is still not kind of embraced that strategy. And I would say of the last 5 years, this is going to be the first year that if you didn't utilize that strategy, we've got quite a bit of uncertainty as to how it's going to impact you in the future. And for the most part, the reason for that is because we don't know what the Trump administration is going to do with the supplemental visa release. During the past 5 years, the Biden administration has been very transparent about the fact that they were always going to authorize supplemental H-2B visas. And that's because they were announcing early in September that if the October visa gets capped, that they're going to roll out additional visas. And they were very transparent about the 3 different troughs that they were going to have available to roll out supplemental visas. And they were also going to allow employers to utilize the Northern Triangle plus 4 countries for new workers. And that's because, again, as a matter of foreign policy, early in the Biden administration, the vice president essentially sought assurances from the Northern Triangle that they were going to try and suppress refugee resettlement along the southern border into the United States, in exchange get supplemental H-2B visas. I don't know what the Trump administration is going to do with supplemental visas. For the 3 years during the first administration, he did offer supplemental visas. He did not do so until March. He did not offer supplemental winter visas. But the 1 year where the administration did not release supplemental visas, going all the way back to the first Clinton administration, is the COVID year of the Trump administration. So that 2020 President Trump refused to supplement the H-2B visa cap. Now, a lot of that had to do with the fact that um, there were a lot of employers that didn't need H-2B visas at that time because they were suffering, obviously business disruption associated with the pandemic. But I don't know what he's going to do this year. What I would remind each of you is you guys are not just business owners, you're also political constituents. And so if you've developed and fostered relationships with your congressional representation, either your senators or your congressmen, I would I would identify that if this is going to impact or potentially could impact your business opportunity, not just for the winter, but also potentially for the spring, that you remind them about how important the H-2B program is to your business. So be actively engaged out there. Again, we love our clients. You guys know that. I'm sincere about that. Our paralegals take emotional energy in addition to their academic prowess to ensure that you've got your H-2Bs. We care a lot about you guys. We stress when you stress, we succeed and allow you guys to succeed and foster your growth of your business. And we take a lot of um, uh, we take a lot of value in our relationships with you guys. And so what you need to know is because of this uncertainty associated with the supplemental visa release, and because of the impact it potentially could have on you and your business for spring of next year, we engage in kind of a robust strategy development for each of you. Some of you are very similar to others, and then we've got others that have successfully not only utilized our strategies, but have taken advantage of certain markets for them to be able to grow over their competitors. Any of those markets, Los Angeles, Chicago, Memphis, DC, where you've got significant ICE HSI presence right now, we're seeing that competitors that are not utilizing the H-2B to supplement their permanent workforce are suffering significantly because they can't find workers that are willing to work in those dangerous environments. Whereas H-2B workers obviously are superiorly confident to go into those environments just because they know all they need to do is flash their passport to show that their visa authorizes them to work for you, and they just move on down the road. So if you do not currently employ a strategy to ensure that you're going to be able to get your workers in the spring, let's start having those discussions. Obviously, Emma and Anissa are going to start sending you guys out reminders for those of you who have not yet engaged us for spring that you need to pay up. And a little bit of that reason is because we have very limited resources, right? I can only work Penelope as much as I can possibly work her before she starts freaking out at Christmas time. And so we are unfortunately going to, I think, going to have to refer clients out because the volume of H-2B requests is something that we haven't seen at this level. I think a little bit of that is the economy, but I think this is going to be a generational trend just because kids graduating from high school now don't want these really, really good blue collar jobs. And so, like I said, if you don't have an alternative strategy, please contact us immediately so that we can do that. Just as a reminder, what we're trying to do is get you cap exempt workers. We don't know what the relief is going to be. We know that the cap got hit. We don't know what kind of impact, returning workers are going to have. But what we definitely know is if we mobilize post October 1, the federal fiscal year 2026 workers for you, they're exempt from the spring cap. So we can employ as many strategies as possible, but the easiest strategy to ensure that you're going to get your workers in the spring is to get them here during the fall. Just as a reminder, guys, we have about 600 clients, and that's not hyperbolic. You can find out on the Department of Labor website how many labor certifications we file on January 1st and July 3rd. So it's kind of, I mean, I love all of you, but it's hard to keep track of what it is that I said 10 minutes ago, much less what I said about a week ago. So that's why email conversations are really good for me because I can remember what I said. It gives me an opportunity to do that. Obviously, if there is something emergent, go ahead and feel free to call my cell phone. But like I tell most clients, I spend about 6 to 8 hours a day on the phone. And so um, if you call and you need to leave a message, know that I'll try and get back to you as soon as possible. But the easiest way to get a hold of us is to email your paralegal contact and ask for us to set aside some time to schedule a consultation. So with that, we're at the 20-minute mark. I really appreciate the opportunity to discuss this with you, and I look forward to talking to you guys again in the future.